First and foremost, good afternoon. We're joined today on the fourth episode now of the BlockchainMacca series with Scott Byrne-Fraser, who is the Chief Technical Co-founder of Hundo Careers. Scott, do you want to sort of introduce yourself to the viewers and give us a bit of flavour of your background and where you've come from?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first off, thank you for having me on there. On today's pleasure speaking to you. My background, I've been into tech my entire life. I kind of grew up in Blackpool. I was the proper typical geeky kid who was really into sci-fi and really into pulling Amigas to pieces. That kind of shows how old I am.
Yeah.
And then I moved into like the UX and product design space before it was actually called UX. So I started to work on some reasonably big brands, building out some of the bigger products, really focusing on like creating like just really good experiences for people. I got there through a combination of hard work and a hell of a lot of luck. In order to actually get me to that place. People often ask me how I developed my career, and the answer is I don't really know. It was like a good opportunities at the time, good conversations, being in the right place at the right time, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
As things progress, I've had the opportunity to work at some amazing brands over the years, some of the bigger tech orgs, some of the big media companies, but also quite a few startups as well. And then over this last couple of years, I've been focusing more on the sort of startup space. And within the last 2 years, just got really interested in the entire Web3 sort of ecosystem and what that has to offer. I think because from my perspective, it just reminds me of, the early days of the internet and what the internet could actually offer. And it's kind of taken us back to that decentralized space. So my journey has kind of brought me back into this space where I ended up working with Hundo. And I think the reason why I joined Hundo is that, one, we're on this mission to really change young people's lives. We want to be able to use technology to actually have a really positive impact on people, to be able to fundamentally end youth unemployment. Unemployment within the young is extremely high levels. It will only get worse. During the pandemic, it was young people that were losing their jobs more so than older people. But on the flip side, in the tech space, as you'll be aware, there is literally thousands of roles available. The demand for tech is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And particularly as we start moving into Web3, is not just roles, but it's new types of roles. It's a whole new space of roles that didn't even exist 6 months ago, let alone 2 years ago. So we can have quite a fundamental impact on people's lives by being able to educate them in this space.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed we're actually in kind of matching t-shirts today. As we sort of alluded, I've been keeping a keen eye on yourself and the team at Hundo. Been genuinely inspired by the work that you guys are doing. Having not gone to university or anything myself, I know there was times I certainly felt friends of mine were going to uni, and I was in that position where what do you do? And I think, if there had been a Hundo Careers when I left school, it would have been really beneficial for me. Obviously, I've been lucky. I've kind of stumbled my way through and found myself doing this now, which I love doing. But yeah, just explain to us a little bit for those who maybe aren't as stalkerish as I've been with Hundo Careers and what you guys are up to. How does the platform sort of work? What are you looking to do to engage that area of youth talent and people that are out there looking to get into jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure everybody's a stalker, but for anyone that isn't stalking us, I mean, what we're trying to do is we're building the world's first learn-to-earn platform and aimed at Gen Z. To be able to enable people to create careers within the Web3 space and beyond. And I guess what that really means is we are building a platform that will educate people about what Web3 is, why they should care about it, specifically targeted Gen Z. We're targeting at younger people who are potentially 16 or above, potentially at college, maybe not, maybe they've gone to university, maybe they haven't, but they're in that space. And this is going to complement the education they may already be in. We're using a learn-to-earn mechanic, which is very similar to a play-to-earn mechanic that people within a Web3 space will already understand. So through actually learning on the platform, we reward you with one of our own tokens, deliberately done so that people can learn about the Web3 through the use of an actual token and be rewarded by it, and then put it back into the platform to be able to interact and get higher levels of content. We're also trying to remove some of the archaic versions of what used to exist in the hiring space, like, for instance, the CV, really outdated.
The dreaded cover letter that everybody hates so much.
Yeah, the dreaded cover letter everybody hates. No one likes writing, and nobody particularly likes reading because they all sound the same. The CV though there's plenty of online CVs out there. They're all fundamentally that piece of paper that lists the last few roles. Again, highly tailored, doesn't really tell you anything. Through having a platform where you can actually learn on, but then we can encode your results, your achievements as you go along on chain. So you have this on chain record of your achievements, which you can then take with you. It's data your own, it's self-sovereign. So you can take it onto other platforms, and then that becomes your record you can take elsewhere. Totally validated on chain, totally connected to the accredited organization. So you've got that record of truth. So you don't have something that you've had to spend ages not lying on, but tailing to get to a point where you can get there.
It's all real world, tangible experience that these candidates have built up through, like you say, through utilizing that Hundo web platform, which is fantastic. And for anybody that's looking that might be watching it, that's thinking, that would work for me. Like we always do in these videos, all of the links to Hundo, to Scott's pages, both sort of LinkedIn, Twitter feeds, we'll put them in the links below, because I'm sure, I've in what I do, Scott, as a recruitment consultant, the dreaded recruitment consultant, and depending on who you ask, I speak to people daily that are like, really want to get into this space, but maybe they don't have necessary degrees, and I think for a company like you guys to, I guess, find the gap for certainly Gen Z talent is really good. And I know not just yourself, Scott, I know Pierce, Esther, Nadia, the rest of the team that I've spoken to are all on that same kind of wavelength. So it's really refreshing, I think, in terms of the mission and the why for Hundo going out and doing this. Kudos to you guys, and I very much look forward to kind of working closely with you guys in the near future and watching Hundo grow, really, which is fantastic.
Well, thank you very much.
As you know, the pretense of this show is that we get founders and co-founders and people within the Web3 space to come on and answer a killer Q. I've got the killer question for yourself, Scott. So what I'd like to know is, from your point of view, what are the main barriers to Web3 adoption, mass adoption, in terms of what it means for new talent?
Yeah, I mean, this is in a space that I've been spending a lot of time thinking about recently, because we are targeting our content on our platform at people that are not necessarily tech native, certainly not Web3 native. So I guess I've stumbled into a few different conversations. One is actually to articulate what the actual benefit of Web3 even is. It's interesting when you speak to any of our user base, and I use the term young people, but it's fundamentally anyone that's using our platform. Many don't even understand what Web3 is. The first question I often get asked is, well, what happened to Web 1 and 2? In terms of like what it actually could be, what it actually means. And I think there's a barrier of entry just in terms of an understanding that there is going to be a shift to this new kind of way of working. I think there's then a barrier inherent in the language that's actually used to describe that, which is it comes from a very deep tech place. So most of the things within Web3 have come from deep within tech, and that's not necessarily easy to understand to many people that aren't from a tech background. When you're having a conversation with a tech audience, obviously they get it. They already understand it, but they're also not the people we need to encourage into this space, because they're already starting to get into this space. And it's if they already know React and they want to move into Solidity, then that's a natural progression for a developer to kind of go down that route.
Of course,
But if you're a fashion designer and actually you see the opportunities to do fashion design for metaverse spaces, then suddenly you hit this barrier, which is actually, it's very tech orientated. So the language is about tech. Once you've kind of overcome that, you then hit this. There is a UX barrier there. There is a fundamental user experience barrier quite often to actually getting onto a lot of the technology itself. It's things that we take for granted when we're using platforms, but having to have a wallet set up, having to understand the security implications of that, having to, navigating around the terminology of what it means. Even once you've got one wallet set up, it'll only work on one network. Those networks can communicate with each other, but only going through very complicated protocols and bridges. Again, an entire world that you don't necessarily understand. And I think within the Web3 ecosystem as a whole, it's down to us to start actually making that feel more accessible to people. And it's not to dumb it down. because the power of the technology is the fact that you have this level of responsibility.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not to take that away from people, but it's actually to ease people into it. And one of the key things we want to do on Hundo is, educate people about that, teach them what a wallet is, how it works, the security that you need to consider about it, but take away the mysticism of it, take away that kind of fear barrier, which starts to then improve the overall experience that people have. But then I think that across, if you are building for Web3 as well, thinking about that onboarding of new users. And any Web2 players, as much as we can criticize Web2, they've really nailed the UX. When you open up Uber, you get a cab and the cab comes really quickly and you understand how to use it straight away. You don't care what the technology does. And I think that's going to be key with the Web3 space, is to start building things that actually people don't need to know that it's even on Web3. Yes, you've got a fantastic protocol, you've got fantastic blockchain technology underpinning it. Most end users just don't care. They just want to get the outcome. So I think there's a flip needed to, one, start to think about actual user experience, and then start to think about the outcomes that people are trying to get from using those products, and making it easy for people to understand. Again, not dumbing it down, but just making people understand what that is, so they can take those first tentative steps to it. Install their first wallet, maybe have a play with their first actual Web3 dApps. And then they can then make those first tentative steps. And I think that's also a barrier for not just adoption, but it's a barrier for people moving into being educated into this space.
Yeah, I think both sides of it, I think, isn't it? It's from that, acquiring of new talent, so the people working within the businesses, but also I think adoption for the everyday user. I mean, I kind of say to people that I speak to within this space that, the day I can go and visit my mum and kind of say to her, right, tell me how you set up a MetaMask wallet, or explain to me how, and what an NFT is. The day that she turns around and tells me very eloquently what that means, then I'll know that, we've bridged that gap, and there is now a more of an understanding, because I think what you said is absolutely spot on. A lot of people hear Web3 and I think instantly think crypto. And don't necessarily associate it with the overall new area of technology as a whole. People hear Web3, they think Bitcoin, and I think that's the area there. Companies and people within the space need to sort of broaden it and allow for more people to kind of come in.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you're right. I think when people hear Web3, they will think crypto, and then they'll have a good or bad opinion on what that means. Depends on whatever they've learned beforehand. And they might say it's super exciting. They might say it's actually, I'm not, for X, Y, Z reason, I'm not too keen on that. Same with NFTs. It's quite divisive, but actually fundamentally it's a technology. And I think a big shift will actually be, NFTs is a really good example. NFTs are just a piece of technology that allows you to effectively codify on-chain. Metadata fundamentally. So run a small piece of logic that allows you to make very simple programs. If people can get into the language of using those like you would signing a contract on a piece of paper, and I think if you can demystify things to that point where actually people start to understand, again, the end benefit of it, rather than it just being a term, then it becomes more accessible. In a similar way that MP3 did many years ago. People would talk about an MP3, and it just became the terminology for online music in the end. And now no one ever talks about MP3s anymore.
No, and suddenly the days of walking around with sort of 10 CDs in a big bag and a big like Sony Walkman. The thought of somebody doing that now is alien, because the majority of people have got it all on their phones now, and listen to music through the phone. So it's a natural progression, and it's kind of like, I suppose it's similar to almost like what email did to the letter at one point. And I think we're now in that phase, I think, where we are on the cusp of, if not already within that Web3 period. I think the next step, like you sort of alluded to, is going to be the adoption on a mass scale, as it were. And I think that's where we need to work on collectively, everybody within the space.
Yeah, I agree, because I think one of my aims with Hundo is that people are using Web3, but totally out of the context of how we're currently using it. There's obviously lots of great tech right now within Web3, but I want to see real good innovation of it from areas that we wouldn't have even thought would have touched it up till now. You know, it's like, what does it, we're starting to see what it means for brands, and people are getting excited about the metaverse, but I'm also interested to see, you know, what does what the pharmaceuticals start to do with it, what do logistics start to do with it, what do corner shops do with it, you know, how are they using this technology that we won't necessarily think of coming from the tech angle from it, but giving them the skills and the lexicon effectively to be able to navigate around it, so that they can come up with great solutions using the tech, but just in the context that they need it. And I think then we start to see mass adoption, because we start to see use cases for it that we would never have dreamed of. And I think that's when it really gets traction.
100%. And I think I, for one, and I know like we are, I'm probably share the same thoughts as you. I'm all here for it. I'm very much looking forward to kind of seeing how the space emerges, and what little things, like you say, like going to the corner shop, how that could involve and implement things such as NFTs, such as Web3 technology within, you know, stuff that is really everyday to us. Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Scott. That's a really sort of giving me a couple of interesting takeaways there that for sure I'm going to discuss like with team members, and kind of put that question to other people. You know, what do you sort of think is mass adoption? What does Web3 mean to you? So brilliant, fantastic. And I know Hundo got a load of stuff coming up this year. I know you guys have got some sort of career fairs sort of planned for the latter stage of this year, which really exciting to hopefully be a part of that, and look forward to having many more conversations between each other, Scott.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. And
it's been a genuine pleasure, sir. Genuine pleasure, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott.
Cheers.